지난번에 MSI 때 저희가 EDG한테 패배했었는데
한번 르블랑을 풀어주고 오로라를 써보자 해서
그래도 르블랑으로 먹자. 제가 르블랑 할게요.
오케이, 미 모르가나.
제일 자신 있는 걸 가자. 르블랑 뽑아.
그렇게 해서 이겼는데
Faker has never lost with LeBlanc. EDG take down Faker. A Korean team has fallen in a best of 5.
이번에 그 MSI에 서력을 할 수 있다는 부분에 가장 기대를 많이 하고 있습니다.
SKT 就经过 MSI 后变强了很多嘛，当然我们 EDG 也变强了很多。
일단 저는 EDG랑 가장 만나고 싶었었기 때문에 이번에 조 편성이 굉장히 잘 됐다고 생각하고
어느 팀이 더 잘할지도 겨뤄보고 싶고
박살을 내면 좋을 것 같긴 한데 그래도 이제 예선이기 때문에 어차피 같이 올라갈 거라고 생각하고요.
也许打完小组赛，就是我们就会知道大概是个什么情况。但我觉得最后还是我们会胜利。
First blood, 1v1. Olaf versus Aurelia.
Coup Tigers too far behind. Can't do anything. What is up with the upsets?
Welcome back, everyone, to the 2015 League of Legends World Championship, beaming out around the world from Paris, France. You're getting a look outside, or inside, rather, the arena as of now with the fans hyping up, and outside earlier today as they streamed in, and of course, we're gearing up to support their favorite teams, getting in that team spirit. Our partners from Korea's OGN, of course, setting up, getting ready to tell the story as they will. And the big story today is EDG gearing up for the game against SKTelecom on stage not too long ago. And here's SK on the other side of things, prepping as well. Big game for them. H2K is going to follow that up with their game against the Bangkok Titans, still looking for their first win. Hello, everyone. I'm James Das Patterson, and lending their expertise to weigh in on today's action is Jake Spawn Tiberi, Christopher Monte Cristo Michaels, and of course, Aiden Zyrene Moon. Gentlemen, this is a game full of this is a day full of games. I'm all over the place because I'm excited, but this is a day full of games that matter very much when it comes to group stage standings and who's going to move on to the bracket stages.
I mean, it's immensely important, and we have to start by talking about this first game, EDG versus SKTelecom. This is my finals for this tournament. These are the two teams, because of the way the brackets are going to shake out, I think are most likely to make it to fight for the Summoners Cup, and I am so excited to see this one.
Yeah, I certainly think Game 1 definitely has a lot of onus on it, but you also have to look towards Game 3, LGD versus KT. That is also going to be a very explosive game, just because of how LGD came out of the blocks and looked absolutely horrible.
Yeah, and conversely, KT played a very measured, very controlled style, and were pretty easily able to dispatch TSM.
Yeah, and you got to look at later on in the day as well, look at the game of Fnatic versus AHQ, rematch of MSI, and that could be for the 2-3 spot, could be for one of the top 2 spots inside of that group.
Well, yesterday, leading into today, brought some interesting developments about as we saw a few big upsets starting in Group D as Europe's 3rd seed Origin took down the LPL's number 1 seeded LGD. Now, we thought SKT was in for a tough game, but he came through in the clutch, turning the game with a massive Orianna ult.
And this play was out of control. As you can see it on the screen there. One thing I do want to point out is that Imp is standing on top of his Braum, which is where you never want to be as an AD carry, but Origin play this beautifully. So the key thing to look for is exactly where the Orianna ball is continually placed in this fight. It's always in a threatening zone, and then the damage explodes, as you can see it on the bottom of your screen. As soon as the Hemoplague Shockwave right there comes out, it's just going to completely destroy the entirety of the LGD lineup. And you'll see Imp's damage before that. He was double the damage of the Kalista, but Orianna just completely took over that fight.
Yeah, I feel like the TP trying to flank when you have a Kog'Maw is not the best idea in the world. And ulting with Vi onto the Callista support, you should be going straight for the Callista in that situation. I feel like there was definitely a lot of misplays there, but I do think that XPK's Orianna came up huge off of just the wombo combo.
And just taking a look at historically these two solo laners, Soaz and XPK, they know how to use double TP, right? We can go back years on this one, all the way back to season 3, and say this is a team that knows how to use these summoner spells to set up split pushes, to really actively engage pressure on the map. And I'm really happy that we're seeing it again.
And one thing I do want to point out is how smart it was of Origin to pick this big team fighting comp, because as soon as they let the Lulu through, they knew that LGD wanted to group. So pick things like the Orianna, like the Vladimir, get a lot of wombo combo going, because they will eventually come at you as 5 people.
Now, important to note that play like that averaged XPK 783 damage per minute there as a mid laner, which is an exceptional stat in this tournament alone, as well as for Orianna as a champion. Then, of course, in Group A, the LMS's Flash Wolves took down Korea's second-seeded KOO Tigers.
Yeah, and this is what I really wanted to see out of the Flash Wolves, because they're a team of 3 great players, in my opinion, in their jungler, mid laner, and support. And then they kind of have 2 players that are very hit or miss. So I expected them, if they were able to get it going with either NL or their top laner Stake, then they would have a strong showing at this Worlds.
Yeah, and they brought in NL for this set. And Stake actually did an interview afterwards where he was saying he became more consistent in scrims, and he just said, I'll stop feeding, and the 3 people will carry me on the team. But they brought NL in for communication because Kramer just doesn't speak the same language, and he's always a little bit out of position and a little bit late to get to places. So it ended up working out for them. Also, on the inverse side, KOO, they've been saying, hasn't been doing as well in scrims lately. 5-16 might have thrown them for a loop.
Well, we'll see how it goes. I think they looked quite good in their first game, but then again, it was not the strongest opponent. But Flash Wolves impressed me. Stake really, I thought, was going to be a weak point, but he's been solid so far in this tournament. Now, my concern about the Flash Wolves is, sure, they played this great poke composition. What happens if they don't have Varus and Nidalee and Gangplank? That's what I want to see more of that and see how deep their champion pools go and their team compositions go before I'm really sold on this team.
Absolutely. A couple good upsets, though, yesterday. Now, before we get into today's matchups, a quick look at how the teams are arranged in the standings. North America's CLG are in first place in Group A. The Flash Wolves and KOO Tigers are locked up in second, while Pain Gaming is still looking for their first win. Now, in Group B, Fnatic and Cloud9 are up 1 win apiece over Invictus Gaming and AHQ. In Group C, SKT and EDG are on top with 2 wins over H2K and international wildcard Bangkok Titans. And in Group D, Korea's KT Rolster and the EU LCS's Origin are each 1-0 over LGD and TSM. That could all change today, where we got a full day of games starting in Group C with a powerhouse matchup between China's Edward Gaming versus Telecom. Then H2K will go up against the Bangkok Titans, and after that, we'll switch over to Group D for the number 1 seed LGD versus KT Rolster. So again, returning to these games today, gentlemen, looking ahead real quick, key matchups for you and how you see them playing out, or what you think might play into them the most.
I think the key matchup here is watching SKT try and shut down the Clear Love Mako jungle synergy, because they did it so well against KT, which is a team that plays similar to EDG in that regard. And I want to see if they can replicate it again against a team that I think plays it the best in the world.
Yeah, I think they are very similar in that way, but I agree. I mean, Clear Love, definitely a better jungler than Score, so that is going to be one of the key facets of the game. I'm just curious where the mind games go in Champ Select. We saw that video to start off, how EDG baited out the LeBlanc pick. How much do these teams want to show? I think they both really want to get out in first place in this group. That's my... Knowing SKTelecom, they never really stop trying.
I completely agree. EDG is a very proud team as well, and you saw Clear Love on your screen. He is one of the most proud League of Legends players ever. They will not hold anything back this game. This is the revenge match.
Yeah. Now, Zyrene, this is the second time we're going to see Group B. They had a day off, and considering the results of day 1 with C9 coming up over AHQ and Fnatic beating IG as handily as they did, what are you looking for out of these teams with that extra day of preparation to come into here for their second round of matches?
Yeah, that day off doesn't do a whole lot for you. You're watching some games. The meta really is still up in the air, and people are still learning 5.18, and we've seen some teams have that rocky road. The one I'm definitely looking at is IG, because they had the worst performance, I think, out of any team that was expected to have a good performance here. They dropped the ball heavily in champion select and then just their play around the map. They showed those huge inconsistencies from before, but it was just another level up.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to point out is exactly what you said. This is an existing issue with IG. Kakao is feast or famine. He either stays in the jungle, some say he's still farming in that game right now, or he comes out and ganks every lane and just snowballs the map. So I want to see what Kakao shows up.
All right, well, there you have it. We've seen each team play at least once, and we've already had our fair share of upsets. So the question for today is, who is your group stage dark horse and why? Starting with you, gentlemen.
I'm on the IG bandwagon still. I think a lot of people jumped off. It's now very spacious. I have a lot of my own stuff in there. But I think that Invictus Gaming, a lot of people will look at that and say that they just played it that badly that they won't make it out. They are a great team. And if that's not good enough for you, I think Flash Wolves are a really good team as well.
Yeah, I definitely echo the Flash Wolves there, but then I'll say C9. This is a team that I know that's absolutely insane, but considering that pool that they're in right now, it isn't looking as strong with IG showing some inconsistencies. It's only one game, though, and it's so hard to draw conclusions, and we're asking this question fairly early on in the tournament. But C9 is definitely the team for me if they pull out a win today against IG.
I had actually had some faith in Origin coming in, so it's going to be Origin for me. I think they really stepped up. They have veteran players that have been on this stage before. Niels looks unfazed as a rookie, so there could be some more upset potential there, and especially because, as we talked about yesterday, KT is a team that can drop a game against teams that are, I would say, worse than them. That is definitely a possibility. So in a best-of-one scenario, I can see Origin making it out of that group.
All right, well, as always, you at home can tweet your answers to @LawlEsports with the hashtag Worlds so we can talk them over later today. And before we send it to the casters for Game 1, I want to get your predictions, gentlemen. Who's going to win the rematch of the 2015 MSI Finals, EDG versus SKT? Spawn?
I think that EDG right now are just playing phenomenally. And I think that the amazing J swap up would have actually thrown SKT through a little bit of a loop. They've seen him play once, but they haven't seen that much of him. I'm very excited to see if he gets something like an Olaf.
I think it's going to be SKTelecom. They're going to win here. They're going to win in the finals.
There you have it.
I think it's going to be EDG. I think Mako is just a big step up over Wolf. Even though Wolf did step up his season in the later half, I think that Mako and Clearlove just had that synergy down pat, that they're going to be able to take over the game.
Well, Zyrene with the tiebreaker there, EDG on the desk. Now, as we step into the venue, we'll hear how Faker is one of the few players at Worlds that was eager to meet Edward Gaming in the group stage.
일단 저는 EDG랑 가장 만나고 싶었기 때문에 이번에 조 편성이 굉장히 잘 됐다고 생각하고 또한 나머지 두 팀이 상대적으로 다른 팀들에 비해서 약하다고 평가되기 때문에 좀 더 8강에 진출할 수 있는 확률이 좀 더 높아서 조 편성은 잘 된 것 같고.
Hey everyone, I'm David Freak Turley, and along with my co-caster, the international men of mystery, Sam, Kobe, Hart, and Kensler.
Fancy.
You're very fancy. You got that horse on your sweater, and of course,
Fits
Martin,
with the rest.
Deficio, Lunga,
Polo.
wonderful.
Guy playing polo.
It's still a horse. I'm not wrong about this one. Guys, we're heading into our first match, and it's going to be an amazing one. It's China's Edward Gaming versus South Korea's SKTelecom T1, and this is a battle for control of first place in Group C, rather. I guess it still kind of fits here, but it's going to be an absolutely close one. As the analyst has mentioned a little bit ago, this is the rematch of the mid-season invitational finals. It went to all 5 games, but Edward Gaming did pull it out, which means historically, I guess they're the favorites here. Of course, they're very strong teams, and SKT is definitely looking for payback.
Yeah, and I have to say, you're correct there, Freak, and it's not only just the players that are looking for a little bit of revenge here, but also the coaches. Koma has said many times in these interviews how he was a bit embarrassed about the MSI defeat, so you know that he wants to redeem himself as well. I'm very excited to see what he's prepared today. Of course, there is always that question of how much these coaches want to remain reticent in the group stages and don't want to give away too much.
Yeah, but now we have seen some other strong teams in the other groups. Getting that #1 seed is, of course, very important for these teams here. But if you look back at MSI with EDG versus SKT, one thing that really stood out to me was just Clearlove and Mako, the jungle support synergy against Bengi and Wolf. That was a big difference for me. I think it's going to be such a key thing today as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That was a big part of their victory over H2K.
And of course, there's other players that are really important to me as well. You guys talk about some of the matchups. I'm interested about the top lane, actually. Even though you've got Pawn versus Fake here in the mid, the top lane is really interesting because the new champion pool now at the World Championship here, most specifically, Marin had a big Fiora hard carry game up against H2K. They were losing until he got a triple kill in a team fight and took the game over, so he's a big guy for me.
Yeah, and on the other side, Amazing Jay. I mean, both of these guys have had really good statistics here in the first couple of games, obviously, because of the opponents that they're playing. But there is a little bit of question here for Amazing Jay because Odoamne, even though Amazing Jay came out of it with good statistics, Odoamne actually had a lot of pressure in that lane.
Yeah, that really is the big question because normally EDG is able to match SKT in every single lane. Even in the mid lane, they've been doing well. And then they have that better jungle support synergy that kind of gives them a small edge, at least if we look back at the last time they faced each other. But it requires Amazing Jay to perform at his highest level if he's going to match Marin.
That being said, there is a reason that he was subbed in here. He was one of the early adopters for all of these new top lane champions.
So it's going to be a fun one as we get ourselves ready for the beginning of day 3 here. Again, control of Group C. We'll see how that's going to happen. And keep in mind, of course, there's so much more on the line here. I kind of like talking about the sort of regional strength here at the World Championship, where we're seeing Europe and America do pretty well, but the Chinese teams are actually only 2-2. I think after they got all these Korean players at the beginning of the year, people thought LPL was maybe the strongest region coming into the World Championship, but 2-2 record's not even that good.
I have to say, EDG definitely have been looking really strong, and even LGD, maybe people already knew the one weakness or the big weakness for that team was TBQ, so even that game was not quite as ridiculous
still,
of
again,
a surprise.
it's one game, right? One game from IG where they got destroyed.
Yeah.
LGD was a close game for a while, and then we saw the wombo combo coming in, and Origin took the win. So it's still very early to call out here. EDG definitely, though, showing up as a team that is playing at the maximum.
Yeah.
Clear love, especially in the jungle. I keep mentioning, I think he's the best jungler we have here, and if he keeps showing up, he can win the game.
I mean, honestly, this year, actually, the jungle pool, I was a little bit disappointed.
You could probably have played here, Kobe.
Whoa!
Hey, you like to play Vi.
I appreciate the praise, but that you're reaching way too far. But I have to say, Dandy's gone to the top lane. Spirit's not here. There's all, okay. We'll get into the lineups here because
exactly. Either way, guys, let's actually talk about those starting lineups here. And on the blue side from the Chinese LPL, it is Edward Gaming, a big powerhouse here. Amazing Jay up in the top lane, the new guy to the team. Clear Love, maybe the best jungler in the world. Pawn, returning world champion here. Def there, formerly of Samsung Blue, great AD carry as well, and Mako on support, absolutely one of the world's best.
And on the red side, it's going to be SKTelecom. Up in the top lane there, Captain Marin. He's been a beast so far. Bangi, as you said, also strong jungler. Faker in the mid lane, AD carry Bang, and supporting him will be Wolf.
And now coming into this pick and ban phase here, SKT is on the purple side, so we have first pick for EDG. I wonder how much focus we're going to see on these jungle picks, because if Clearlove can get an Elise and maybe get a small advantage up there, it could be very big for EDG. SKT, in the last few games, have been target banning quite a lot, and then of course been banning Mordekaiser as expected. Should be the same. Gangplank as well, you do not want to give that to EDG.
Yeah, the thing to watch is Mordekaiser bans on the red side, because some of the teams actually, KT and SKT included, have banned him even on the blue side.
That's going to be interesting to see if they actually care that much about this champion and maybe even can't play it themselves. They're not willing to first pick it. Maybe they think something else is a bit higher here. There are 5 champions that are still 100% pick banned so far. And only Gangplank is the one you mentioned not letting it go through, is the only undefeated one here of those 5 champions. So that's one that I have my eye on very, very closely as well.
He should be banned away. We really saw the power yesterday when Flash Wolves beat Ku Tigers Mabel in the late game on that Gangplank. Completely just took over the fights.
Yeah, and some interesting background on Gangplank. In that game, Maple actually did 40% of his damage as magic damage. So that's coming from the ultimate use. And actually, overall, the average across the world of Gangplanks, the champion just in general normalizes at around 25% magic damage. So it's a lot more magic damage than you would expect.
Also helps when you missed all your barrels. So
I mean, that's why it was 40% compared to the average of 25.
So let's see here. Gangplank is already being banned away. Lulu as well. We would expect Mordekaiser being the last one for SKT. That would be an Elise first pick for EDG, unless they wanted Darius up in the top lane. That could be the trade-off SKT is looking for, because Amazing Jay already played it twice and has been looking pretty solid overall on it.
Yeah, the top lane is so interesting to me. I'm always trying to keep up with the counter picks in that lane
They want the
because
Darius.
it's so snowbally. But generally, yes, Gnar is really safe into a lot of the new power picks like Darius and Fiora. However, Gnar gets countered by Yasuo. So it's this kind of circle where you can't pick Gnar early and you have to wait to see and hope for that counter pick in the top lane.
So, in case they do take a Kalista here, I just want to talk a little bit about why. She's a pick that still a lot of teams consider one of the absolute strongest AD carries. And I think in a matchup where it's so much about jungle support synergy, having a strong dual lane is super, super important, because if you win that lane, it opens up for your support to start roaming. And at the same time, if you manage to shut down the enemy spot, he's forced to sit there with his AD carry. He cannot leave the lane, so Kalista suddenly has a lot of value as that lane bully. You can even go Kalista Thresh now if they want, or an Annie pick for Mako.
Meanwhile, SKT not giving away anything with their first 2 picks here. They want to save counter picks for solo lanes as far down in the draft as they possibly can. Rek'Sai, all around great champion, works into any sort of composition that they could possibly run. That does leave the Elise you mentioned for Clear Love.
Well,
oh, never mind, it was banned.
That was banned. So it's good to take Rek'Sai. Again, it would have been the choice for Clear Love. This one here would then kind of change the way EDG maybe were looking to play the early game at first, where they could look to really skirmish early on with the top laner, with your jungler. Skarner, to me, is a good duelist, like one-on-one. If he fights on a Spire there, I think he's very good. But his ganks pre-level 6 are very lackluster.
They definitely are. And even more so after the balance changes to him.
I really like this lane, though. I think it's still one of the strongest 2v2 lanes, and he works as well, and also offers that hard engage we know from Mako. He's on point. So already EDG are setting up for, as we talked about just before, strong 2v2 lane that can open up for your support then to start roaming while the other support is stuck on the tower, and you get that map advantage.
Plus, having the engage like the Kalista Annie combo does so much for Darius. The one problem for Darius, you know, he's not a tank, he's not an initiator from the top lane.
He needs CC, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we'll see what these guys can pick to fill in the rest of this role. Then SKTelecom T1 just have tanks so far. If Marin wanted to play a carry, he could do it with this lineup so far.
I really want to see them just pick a safe blind mid laner for Faker in the mid lane and get that last pick for Wolf. Never mind, that Darius is open. I'm way out.
You talk about safe lanes there. Renekton still extremely strong in the top lane, and Marin definitely no stranger to the champion. Has plenty of history with it.
So I got my wish that we're going to get the counter pick in the top lane for Marin. He could pick whatever he wanted. They just didn't have to wait because, of course, EDG had already shown theirs. We're not expecting Darius to go into the mid lane.
Well, Olaf made his appearance there, so...
Yeah. Wide champion pools here. So interestingly, SKT have been able to counterpick on every single one of the main carry roles here. Sivir after seeing the entire bot lane matchup, Renekton after seeing Darius, and they've saved Faker's champion for last year. So you'd expect that SKT would like all of their lane matches. None of them should be too hard of counters.
2 armor buff. And now,
don't forget 5 AD on Warrior.
Yeah, see, you're so quick to dismiss Darius mid. Could swap the Echo if you really wanted to.
I think Echo is a really, really safe mid lane pick. You can farm against basically everything. So I heavily expect this to go into the mid lane, and it's, again, Faker, you don't really have a specific counter pick into it. It should be at least an even matchup at best.
Yeah, by the way, for people who haven't been keeping up with the patch changes, the reason we're assuming that Echo is going to be solo lane full AP is because of those recent changes. A big nerf to the tank Echo jungle build. So we're assuming that will be a solo lane.
Though, one of the picks I do like into Echo is a Rise. Because I think what's very, very good is you can so easily keep him in check. You get a free lane as well for yourself where you kind of just trade farm. And the scaling of a Rise is just so insane still. It's a lot slower than it used to be. But once you hit those late game points, he's still a monster.
I say, though, you never really get a free lane against a jungle Jarvan. It's been a while since we've seen Jarvan in the jungle. He's one of those champions that can go for the high impact level 2 gank. All he needs is one camp to unlock the combo, and he can go try and burn something from Rise.
And again, that's the whole story. What can the 2 junglers do against each other? We know Bengi, he likes to be in the top side of the map. He wants to snowball both Faker and Marin up there. At the same time, we expect Mako to have a big impact joining in with Clear Love, and we have to see if Wolf here can follow, because that 2v2 can really shut down both the mid laners, and of course a top lane matchup as well that can heavily tip in favor of each side. Whoever gets that early great start.
And that's the funny thing, is the one lane we're really not expecting to see a lot of kills in is that bottom lane. Even though Kalista's a great laner, these supports are more about roaming out and make other things happen. They tend to be a little bit safer in the 2-on-2 match, just play style-wise. So seeing, again, how they affect the rest of that map is going to be really interesting.
And I really do like EDG going back to the Jarvan for China here, because with the Cataclysm, it's one of the tools that you can use effectively against Sivir as a jungler. She's one of the most frustrating AD carries usually to play against as a jungler, yet you can keep her there.
Well, you can run around fast in the circle.
You can run around circles all you want, but it makes it a pretty easy target there for Defta and Mako.
Well, we'll see how good these targets are going to be, because we're getting ourselves into the game here. The first one of day 3, and you guys at home are always involved with this one. Stay connected with us over on Twitter and share your game predictions for this first match. Use hashtag EDG win or hashtag SKT win for the team you think is going to come out on top. The mid-season invitational champions from China, Edward Gaming, or the #1 team and former world champions SKTelecom T1 over from Korea. As we get ourselves into the game, here we go.
And it really seemed like SKTelecom, they were ready for the Darius pick. Even when they saw the Echo, they were very quick to lock in Ryze last, again saving that pick for Faker because Darius had a high priority for EDG, so they wanted to pick it early and blind. So SKT, in their mind, have some good setups, and we just have to see what Benki now can do on this Rex side.
Yeah, the red side counter picks definitely been rising in importance here. That being said, even if you are ready for the Darius top lane, Darius plus Jarvan, very scary early game combo as well.
And I think one of the great things about Darius and why teams like him so much is even if he doesn't have the greatest matchup in the world, he can still farm pretty well, he can still be a threat, and he always has that risk in team fights where he gets that first reset and just kind of keeps going from there.
Right. The one thing he does lack, though, an escape. If he's targeted early, you can snowball against Darius just as well as you can snowball with Darius because he does not have the extra mobility. Renekton will be able to move around that lane even if they blow his flash.
Oh, it's so easy for Renekton to set up the stun, double dash, stun him down. But it's going to be a lane swap in the start. Both teams, one team, SKT, starting in their own jungle, and we see the invade now for EDG just to make sure we divide the map properly and nobody's stealing away an early Grumble blue buff.
Yeah, they're trying to catch a greedy start here, but instead it's just going to be Edward Gaming spotted by a late defensive trinket ward by SKT, which gives a lot of vision advantage to that Korean team.
SKT actually with the safest possible start, starting on their own red side jungle on the strong side of the map. And they're rewarded for it with that defensive ward. They did see the sort of late invade there from EDG, so they'll be slightly ahead, half a camp.
And we're going to have 2 lanes pushing in towards the tower for the AD carries. An early
Speaking of pushing.
It's already been shoved up Faker. He needs level 2 for that Rune Prism.
But here comes everybody. Pawns by himself, jumps forward, tries to get out of range, and Faker's not too. Didn't have Rune Prison, couldn't lock him down.
Yep, great use of the minion wave there, Pawn. Even though shoving up exposes you, early on, the damage coming from the ranged minions especially is tremendous, and Faker could not continue the chase there, even with the rest of his team coming out of the river.
It's always so key, though, which side you're standing at in this mid lane when we have these early lane swaps, 4 members showing on top side. Well, of course, you're just going to bounce down towards the bottom, and they're never going to chase you and like blindly face check into someone.
This is something that Pawn does so well for his team. I mean, even we just talked about his team was a little bit behind because of sort of late invade. By drawing the rest of SKT out of the jungle to try and gank mid, he bought them a bit of time to catch up here, and SKT have been double jungling, and they've cleared out almost everything.
But this is very much the standard Western lane swap in so many ways. The only change we normally see is the top laner come in and take down tower. SKT is doing it. EDG is not. They continue to double jungle, so they're they're slightly behind in tower damage. But this is an adaptation from the Asian teams. It's no longer that freeze with your top laner and play a very slow lane swap. It's fast-paced. You want to get down that early tower and then swap the lanes around.
And bottom lane right now, though, even though it hasn't gotten any help at all, is down to 626 health, so not much worse off.
Yeah. Mako making good use of the Spell Thief's early buy there. Let's see if they transition into the Dragon. They've started it already.
Pawn burns his first teleport, getting a second Doran's Ring, so he's going to be using that to help keep this lane afloat. Top lane turret's already gone. SKT have built the freeze, but a Dragon will come through for Edward Gaming.
So I'm normally never a fan of taking a Dragon this early in a lane swap because I think the tempo of which you can now swap back really gets slowed down so much. Your tower is not dead yet, so by the time Amazing J catches a lane, it's either going to be slow pushing towards SKT on the top side where Marin is sitting, or he's going to have to walk down bot lane where he's going to be met by 2 guys, Bang and Wolf, instantly, and he won't be able to pick up any farm, so he sacrificed experience on getting an early Dragon for the team.
Yeah, that's a good point. Most definitely Marin has got the push going towards him right now, so he's going to leave it right there. Should move up close to the turret, and he'll get back in time.
And he knows because he saw how late Kalista was sitting in the bottom lane, and because the tower didn't even go down from EDG in this lane swap, with them taking the dragon, that of course Darius is going to return to the top side. So he went for an early recall, got a second Dorns and boots, and of course that green ward that can be important when it comes to this early aggression.
That being said, you can see EDG is thinking behind taking the early dragon. This composition that they're running does rely on drawing SKT out. They don't have a lot of siege potential, so the early dragon stacking is one of the key points they wanted to hit early.
I do want to bring up one point about this 2-on-2 matchup down here, though. Even though Bang did get some turret gold, the average blade is in here. Deft has 6 extra attack damage from the dragon itself, so he's actually got much better actual just damage output in an eventual trade in this fight.
And also, he's a Blade of the Ruined King AD carry, so for him having 800 gold is perfectly fine. You just get some lifesteal. For a BF Sword AD carry, on the other hand, it is really, really annoying. You cannot get a pickaxe, you have to go for average blade, so Bang is really weak at this point, and it's one of the reasons teams prefer Kalista above these Infinity Edge AD carries, because earlier you can be more proactive. You can force play a little bit more with these early items where you don't need the 1550 gold before you go back.
Because SKT or EDG actually didn't take that turret in the bottom side though, there is the turret there for SKT to rely on, and Bang and Wolf have been controlling this wave, keeping Deft and Mako under the turret for a decently long time, and they've got a lot of wards in the red side jungle of EDG.
We need to see Bengi though pay a visit to this top lane. Darius, he has his flash ready, but at least blow that one, because the lane is such a tricky spot for him. If you notice up here, there's no tower behind him. There's no real way of escaping a double dash stun from Marin. It's a very easy gank, and you just, of course, gotta look for that counter gank from the Jarvan.
Yeah, and you just have to be very tricky with your gank path as Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai is so flexible. She can tunnel over the back of the Baron Pit, try and walk around the Scuttle Crab, sneak on through it, and squeeze through there to work your way around the wards. Bengi here is going to go straight through the jungle.
That's the pink.
Oh, barely.
Very important though, you can see how EDG has been focusing vision on the top side. Rift Scuttler, a pink ward in the river to try and protect Amazing J. It's an easy target. It's very obvious for them what's going to happen. So 3 ways of basically spotting Bengi. Works out for them for now. And yeah, Bengi has to go back into his jungle.
All right, he got 1 deep ward though. He'll track when Pon goes for his own blue buff about 1.5 minutes from now. Meanwhile, though, it didn't, I believe, track Clear Life. Was already down to the bot side. Wolf gonna face check and be okay with this one. Looks like no turret dive will happen. This turret was already very low. Bang was already gone. Eventually, the turret is picked up, and Edward Gaming, in the grand scheme of things, equalizes turrets and still has first dragon.
It is so key for them that this 2v2 lane can do well. The item advantage they're going to get with the early backs from the AD carries. They get down the tower. Fight in mid lane. Bengi coming in.
Not going to be a hit on Pon, though. Already burned his flash to get away. His teleport's right about back up, so he's going to be okay. But I want to point out the fact that SKTelecom are up 900 gold already because his top lane matchup, this Marin Renekton counterpick into Darius, is making Amazing J's life miserable.
It will get a little bit better because there's a cannon minion double wave right there, but you're right, it's still going to be a significant advantage.
And this is what we talked about with taking this early dragon. Instead, you could have Amazing J sitting in the bottom lane when the tower goes down, so he gets the gold for it, and the wave bouncing back comes to him, so he picks up experience. But no, they move him in towards the dragon, takes and then force himself to go top lane in a wave pushing away from him.
It all depends on how much you're willing to pay for the early dragon stacking, though, because it is
a lot for now.
Yeah, it is important to them.
Well, that's what they've paid so far. They've paid about 1,000 gold for that dragon. Even in the old days, that wouldn't even be an equal trade of gold anymore. We're, of course, past the gold value dragons anyway, but Bengi on towards the blue buff himself. Faker, by the way, has already won his mid lane. He's up 12 CS and is about to be going into the blue buff as Bengi takes a bit more damage than he'd like, but doing the best he can. Faker,
he
gets some more CF where he even walks over. I mean, really greedy.
Mid lane, yeah, you can wait at the blue buff. I don't care. You can take a bit of damage.
That's definitely triggered me right now.
Are you tilted, Kobe?
If the mid laner doesn't come over by the time you get the blue buff down, then it's fair game to take it.
You just always start the buff right when I recall. That's how you make sure you get your own blue buffs. Just
Faker,
try to
though,
pick awkward timing.
Yeah, I would never, ever take a blue buff from Faker. I would die at the blue buff before I took it from Faker.
What if he was playing Yasuo?
Because Faker is the late game carry for this team. He's had such a good start on Rise. He's already got both the components for the stacking mana items on Rise, and he's controlling his lane. There's just so much power in the mid lane here for SKT, and they've also been able to ward up around the mid lane for him.
Yeah, Echo got locked in blind. I was like, hey, you know, so many good matchups, can farm against it, just a few bad ones, and Faker is instantly ready with one of them. He's saying himself he can play all the champions in the game. He knows almost every single matchup, and once again, he's showing that he has a massive champion pool.
Whoop. Oh, I just missed the Q, though. Faker missed a skill shot on a minion.
Well, ignore everything I just said.
Yeah. Faker confirmed to be human at least, or the robot's been calibrated badly. We're seeing Clearlove look for a play here. Mako also hiding behind the Fog of War. They're looking to make a play. There's no turret down there, and Rek'Sai just used ulti, so Bengi can't join in if something goes awry.
Both top laners are full health with teleports as well. You can already see Pawn going to farm Race, so I don't think they're actually going to try and press this.
Ooh, spotted on a ward now. EDG instead are going to make the play for Dragon. That was the, looks like the ultimate goal, but they're facing so many wards. SKTelecom just put those down. That was Bengi, who just got a ton of wards over this Dragon area.
And this is the main problem with giving up too much gold for the early Dragon. It becomes really hard, even though you have the first one and you want to start stacking them, you can get up to 5 quicker. You don't have the gold to fight the consecutive Dragon fights.
Exactly. The thing about Dragon is it looks great to get 1, you get 2, you get 3. You're like, yeah, we're all happy we got some buffs, but they're not worth that much compared to getting a tower, extra farm, experience on maybe your top laner. So it becomes so much more difficult for you to get those 5 Dragons.
Baker. Well, shield comes up for Pawn. They're going to go for the play. There's the jump in, and oh, man! It took him 11 minutes, but Edward Gaming first bloods Faker.
That will make taking the second Dragon a bit easier.
It helps. Yeah. A lot of wards though from SKT towards this bottom side. They have pinks in the river. They had one on the other side, and yet Faker in the end gets caught up because the roam coming up from Mako, joining with Clearlove. These two guys together, they're going to shut down SKT, or at least going to try.
Marin's
so far,
heading
it's a good
down,
start.
and Faker has teleport when he revives in 5 seconds. There's wards right on EDG. They're not going to give this one up. Amazing Jay's going to have to join the team, I think. There's the ulti in for Wolf. TP in, but down goes the support. Edward Gaming 2-0 to start, but now Clearlove gets attacked. That's a trade kill back in Pawn. Now stuck on top of the Dragon. Faker gets his first kill of the game, and then still trades back and forth, but EDG are routed. 3 dead so far. The dunk, it's gonna make bang, please, he's not gonna survive it, but SKT gets more kills and they get the Dragon.
Woo, they're able to stop the stacking. What a call there from SKT. Able to clean it up and pressure down bottom as well. Dragon achieved plus bottom lane turret pressure. Oh, they might even get deft here. Faker's going to cut him off.
He wants some farm.
All right, the 2 solo laners. Here comes the teleport from Amazing Jay. No, it's going to be Pawn, but Deft's already dead. Marin has Aga, but he's not taking any damage. Pawn tries to set up the stun. He will not catch Faker thanks to the flash. A bit of damage on a Marin, but can he really do much more than this one? Down to 400, but out they go. SKT 5-4. It's a delayed ace.
And another great thing here with Faker's Rise pick is against the Kalista who wants to jump around and kite you. You snare her instantly, you chain the CC with the rest of your team. But that Dragon fight, that was one big Renekton who joined in all of a sudden.
All right, so let's take a look at the prep for this. Faker just comes alive. He comes off of the death timer, starts channeling the teleport, and SKT will have all 5 members here. Look at Marin, straight to the back line. They take down Clearlove first.
This front line here for SKT is going to be so massive in this game. Bengi does go down in the end, but he's already done his job. And of course, a full HP Faker, ready to clean up and bang with the potion. And sadly, Doran's Blade lifesteal is not enough.
The mid lane teleports, so underestimated. You have to not only worry about the side lane early ganks of it, but also the respawn timer for Faker. Perfect timing there, able to come right into the middle of the Dragon fight. And SKT swing right back into this one.
If it looked bad for Amazing Jay before, after being sacrificed by his own team's greed for that first Dragon, Marin just picked up some kills as well. He has a Tiamat completed. He can continue to just instant shove the wave, and then he can now start roaming from his top side in towards the mid lane, around the blue buff of EDG, and suddenly that jungle no longer belongs to EDG. It's all gonna be SKT's, and that means this mid tower is suddenly very open, or you just dive whoever's sitting there defending.
Yeah, it's looking for SKT. Unfortunately for Amazing Jay, it was his fault. He teleported so late into the Dragon. I don't know if they didn't have wards, but he joined in after SKT had already started that fight. He's going to have to reap what he's sown now. Blue buff steal for Faker. He's feeling good about this one. But it will be a trade. Edward Gaming will get one for Pawn.
Let's see what kind of deep wards they can get down to. EDG, they do have them inside the blue buff, but SKT pressing mid right now. 4 members on this turret might even be enough to get it. It looks like Mako and Clear Love not going to arrive in time.
EDG respecting the fact that also a Renekton can just come in from the side and don't want to risk anything. No TP for Amazing J. He's kind of stuck there with this wave, and slowly when you're always forced to just catch the big waves coming down to you, you're never going to be proactive because you're always waiting for this wave to hit around your tower, and then you farm it and they can see you sitting there. They know you're going to be there to pick up the farm, and SKT can then always make the first move, or at least just pressure EDG so much they have to back away from objectives and give them up for free.
Ooh, I actually like this here. Marin looks like he may be going for Spirit Visions for a second item because for EDG's side, they've got the tank Jarvan, reducing a lot of the attack damage threat that they're going to have. And if Marin does get magic resist, then he'll be able to keep Pawn off of Faker, and that's really the only threat to SKT taking down SKT's carries for the late game.
Yeah, plenty of healing on the kid as well. Mechanically, it's going to be essentially the same as bonus health. And here we go, looking for the attempt on Faker, but Marin not going to find much. Bounces off a minion, and Faker's fine, just pressing R for the move speed.
Yeah, Mako, you don't want to hit the minions here, so you get shot back to your auto attack range after the Fate's call. In case you wanted to get in range at least for Tibbers, but with Faker running back, I think it was safer just to say, you know what, let's not blow an ulti, and just back away. They didn't know where the rest of SKT were in the map other than just Marin sitting up in that top lane.
Well, 2 minutes to go until Dragon respawns. Marin will easily have his teleport. Faker is going to have his too. Double teleport, of course, for both these teams right now. It's been SKTelecom done a better job of using them.
And for EDG right now, they really want to use this Echo here to try and move him to one of the side lanes. Let him become a bit of a split pushing threat if he can. Maybe find Bang and jump onto him. The problem is he's also the main wave clear for this lineup. So if he leaves the mid lane, it's so easy for Faker just to push it down instantly. It's easy for Marin to push down the top lane. And again, the top side of the map just belongs to SKTelecom.
Uh-oh. So much damage. Yeah, Marin trying to chunk him down. He's got a lot of damage in this one. A couple more spells will do it. There's the hit, and wow, the solo kill. Marin chasing down Amazing J in the top lane.
And Amazing J was the question mark for us. You know, the team didn't do him any favors with that early start you kept mentioning, Deficio, with the lane swap, but getting caught out there overextending versus Marin, and Marin's just going to take him down easily.
He's getting turret pressure now as well. Of course, Tiamat Double Doran's Blade is not exactly a low amount of attack damage, so 172 on him, knocking this down quickly.
Yeah, we mentioned so many times, again, these teams that do not take the wave clear have to be a lot more careful with getting behind in the early game, because if you are behind, then you give up a lot of the tower gold very quickly.
And that tower gold's basically 3-1 here. SKTelecom already knocked down all of the outers. Dragons up in 30 seconds, and SKT are not far away from getting number 2.
And right now, Marin is sitting on 1,500 gold. He should be able to go back, spend it before the Dragon fight. He's massive already. This Darius suddenly is just more or less going to be assisting his team by pulling in someone, try and line it up for Echo and for Kalista to take them down. But that damage against the front line of a very fed Marin, and then also Bengi with the Cinderhulk, that can stay alive for a while. Adding a Braum, by the way, against the Kalista to block so much of her damage.
Yeah, EDG are very worried at this point. They wanted this comp to get ahead, to keep the Dragon stacking, to keep the neutral zone control. Because they do have problems when you get to the scaling here. The Rise and the crit-based AD carry versus the squad that EDG have to be a little bit worried.
EDG wanted too much. They wanted the Dragon stacks, they wanted the early game, and that's not going to happen.
And Bang was even allowed to play greedy. He bought Avarice Blade first item, has been stacking it still throughout the entire game. It's given him 550 gold so far in that one, so just a lot being stacked up here. Faker, both mana items are basically done here. Tier's got to be close to fully stacked. Seraph's Embrace likely to be the next combine there from that needlessly large rod. And with Dragon up, SKT already leading by almost 5,000 gold, and Edward Gaming going to try to defend, but that seems unlikely.
Yeah, you can even wait for Marin just to poke Amazing J a bit more. We see it, he constantly goes in, he can just sustain back with his Hydra, and suddenly now, if a fight breaks out, it's a 50% HP Amazing J coming in with just a Black Cleaver. That's 1 or 2 hits and he's down.
Yep, Marin with his original top lane bully, Renekton, bringing back the old flavor.
We wondered if the teams were going to show anything. SKT on the red side here really showed some very, very smart picks, and maybe EDG getting punished for showing Darius so early in the draft, really putting a lot of priority for Amazing J on it. He's played it every single game here at Worlds, but it allowed SKT to suddenly not have to blind pick a safe mid laner, but get a counter pick for Faker and a counter pick for Marin.
It all worked well. Every single person been able to do just fine from SKTelecom T1.
Whoa. This is actually a risky invade here because Bengi doesn't quite have Faker close enough. Yeah. It was just looking to bluff him off of that red buff.
Yeah. All is well, all is well. Def gets the red buff himself. He's got Blade of the Ruin King done already. Level 11, but no Hurricane in, so that second item really quite important for Kalista in the real team fights here. SKT, of course, already got the Dragon pretty easily, so it's back to doing whatever they want.
Yeah. I am going to keep my eye on EDG's use of True Sight, though, because they have been one of the best teams as far as pink ward droppage and upgrading their sweepers fairly early. They really do need to start clearing out some of these SKT wards that have crept into their jungle. They've got defensive wards up, but the True Sight is going to be key if they want to try and make a comeback.
Yeah, simply just been pushed so far back on the map. Ever since the early game where Marin got that big lead, they got a kill on Faker in the middle, and that's been about it when it comes to the aggressive plays from EDG, because there's not been any openings, and they constantly have to worry about Marin, and he's not getting to the point where he's going to get outscaled or anything. I mean, Renekton's late game is not the greatest, but he just becomes a massive tank then.
Yeah, it's interesting though, he went for such an aggressive build. He was building to continue the split push power, right? Go in and finish the Ravenous Hydra instead of going back for an armor item or getting some more durability. He's trying to push Amazing J out of the lane. Now he builds a Giant's Belt, but really trying to knock that side of the map down.
Speaking of Faker on this rise, who had such a good early start, besides that one death, he is almost done stacking his tier. Only 100 mana left on that, and only 2 stacks left on the Rod of Ages. So his damage is through the roof. In the next 2 minutes, it's going to be there.
And I like this move here from SKTelecom. Take the split, push it down to the
there it is!
Flash and Death with the Rune Prison.
Oh, the Q lands, and that's going to be the kill. Ult not needed. Faker picks up the 7th kill of the game for SKTelecom T1, and just like that, they run towards Baron.
And Wolf going to make it count there. If it wasn't for Braum jumping in and landing that Winter's Bite, they wouldn't have been able to finish it.
Baiting it.
Baron bait.
Hiding around the corner. Look how he's throwing spells in there, so they think he's doing it.
Well, also he's trying to charge up
the passive.
It both works. We like it. We take it.
No ulti, does have flash, wasn't able to use it to stop anyone out there. Unfortunately, burned the cooldown during the kill onto Deft, and SKTelecom T1, by going for the bait, get nothing off of that kill. He's going to respawn and all will be well.
A small raptor right there.
Okay, that's valuable in some kind.
But what is EDG going to do, really? Because once they send down someone to stop Marin on the bottom side, he's just going to go straight into your face and poke you down to 50% again. And then SKT can even start baiting around Baron, and then have the advantage of a stronger top laner coming in.
That's why we keep highlighting how snowbally these 4 teleport games are, because the team that gets the advantage is the one who can utilize that cross-map play. The team that's behind, even if you answer it, you're outmanned and you're outgunned because there's too much gold on SKT's side.
Well, everyone except for the top lane is at least keeping close in farm, but the problem is SKTelecom up 2 turrets, up the Dragon, and up about 83 CS, and the Marin versus Amazing J matchup are getting farther and farther and farther ahead. Han has yet to find any meaningful stunts with the W, but here comes the teleport flank coming in. It's going to be a home guy to Renekton.
They canceled the call. Faker didn't want to use his teleport as well, apparently. So they are going to let them retreat to the turret.
So that does buy a little bit of time now for EDG, because it is Marin that is so insanely strong. He's the guy you want to have on the bottom side of the map split pushing, where even if he does get ganked by 2 or 3 guys, he can often escape with double dash, and you can then go for Baron. But EDG still needs to understand that this can happen, but they're so far back on the map. So, you know what, EDG, they said to themselves, guys, we get a small break here, teleport is down, and SKT's like, well, no, we're just going to take Baron.
Marin is running interference here, keeping everybody from even getting close to the Baron, and SKT easily going to burn that down.
Perfectly done. They kept vision control for the last minute and a half straight after that previous bait. They let no wards go back in. They stayed on that side of the map, and they knew it was blacked out. Evergaming too good to face check. Give it away.
And everything we see right here is simply just something that started at like minute 5 of this game, with the decisions that were made early on in the lane swap from EDG. Also, again, with the pick and ban phase where they showed that Darius early, Ryze suddenly became such a fantastic pick. 1 against Echo, 2 against the Kalista as well. And Faker have managed to just do his job. It's been more about, of course, what the Renekton can do, but he was also in that massive advantage.
Yeah, Marin's got to be the MVP for this game. He was set up for success by SKT, but man, the captain of the team, he's on Renekton right now with the huge peak in power. adding the Sterix plus the regen from the Hydra here, he's going to be... It poses such a difficult question for the enemy team. If you try and take him down and pour damage into him, he only deals more to you, plus he's going to be lifestealing for a tremendous amount. And if you ignore him, he's so fed right now that he's going to rip you apart either way. So, catch-22 there, very difficult to deal with.
Going to be nearly impossible to deal with Marin here. Going to see if they can find a fight without him. His teleport is still down, and Clearlove trading blows with Bengi, close to equal on both sides. Cinderhulk for both these junglers, despite the warrior buffs in the recent patches. Seems like being a full tank is what they want. Bang pop the ulti to look for depth, but nice easy hop over the wall and nothing picked up there except the Wolfcam.
By the way, notice that he did go for the Ravenous Hydra rather than a Titanic, even though he's Renekton, who gets extra health, and he's built extra health items on top of that, really valuing the lifesteal to stay in the fight.
So what's the specific mechanic on the item? Ravenous Hydra is actually an activatable spell, whereas Titanic is an on next hit, so it doesn't break the W animation, which is so common for high-level Renekton players there. You pop it after the W. Of course, uncontestable, SKT just completely owns the map. Edward Gaming have shut down. They have no way to get back in the map and stop what SKT is doing.
Slow and steady for SKT right here. It's been the same when they faced H2K. They never really went over-aggressive. When they had the lead, they knew how to play it out, and there's just so little room for EDG to make any kinds of comebacks.
Yep, Bang here with a couple of Baroned up minions going to take it down. I have to say, though, Freak, it does go both ways, since the Titanic has on hit, and W counts as multiple hits. You get multiple actives there, so I really do think the difference is in the lifesteal factor.
All right, well, either way, he's gone for that lifesteal factor, and he's still doing quite well for himself. 3-0 and 3. The only depth member on his team, in fact. Marin sees that his top lane turret went down. He's angry and kills the minions for it, but still. It's Ever Gaming at best getting trades, but still losing and losing and losing in Dragons.
Exactly, so for SKT, no rush yet. Not at all, really, with the Rise. Coming in for the late game, already fully stacked on tier, Rod of Ages. It is heaven right now for SKTelecom. There's only one outer turret left in the mid lane. And only really the Echo as the wave clear on the side of EDG. You can go for a dive if you want. On SKTelecom side, it's not really much of a threat to.
Yeah, I mean, well-prepared game by SKT, but really well executed as well. I mean, we always mention shot calling and briefly sort of gloss over it. It looks like Bengi here kind of work on some true sight, and Faker goes in.
Finds Clearlove and a ton of damage right away. They try to burst him back out, but Faker's totally safe. Clearlove running away as fast as he can, but it's not good for Pond in the mid lane. He's getting a lot of damage on him. A knockup comes back through thanks to Maker, but look how little damage Marin is taking. The Echo finally falls. It's a 1-0. SKT had to work for it. No, 2, as Clearlove followed well.
Still win the fight, though. That was the engage from EDG. They can do with the Annie, with the Kalista, but they just have no damage at this point. SKTelecom pushing it out 2 lanes. Faker decided to say, you want to jump me? I'm just going to go down to the bottom lane and start farming.
Yeah, I was going to, start filling there with some explanations behind shot calling and try to elaborate, but SKT keep up the pressure here. They don't let you breathe for a second. There was an outer turret left staying that they wanted to claim first.
So it's interesting how defensive SKT are playing this game, but first, let's take a look at that fight.
Well, we get the hard engage. It's what EDG basically have to do. They think they can catch out Faker, but he has the shield. He can flash out from this one, and then the movement speed to just run away, and the rest of SKT is coming. Marin is still such a monster in the backline.
Yeah.
And there's no damage to take him down.
Exactly. That's the full tank Jarvan that we mentioned earlier. Even though they're able to get the combo of Annie and him, locking up Faker, they stunned him, chained it into the knockup. There's just no damage to follow it up.
So I wanted to bring up something really briefly around the defensive play of SKT, right? They're taking a long time to kill the turrets. They're not really diving anything too crazily. Bang not only went 3rd item Quicksilver Sash, but he's actually maxing Spell Shield 2nd. He's already got 5 points on that on the Sivir, leaving Ricochet alone. That's actually very uncommon as far as Sivir builds go, but it basically guarantees he's not going to get caught out by the Darius. He can Spell Shield a lot of his spells and not get killed in the back line.
You're in a situation where being more defensive in terms of your items and in terms of your skills is even better, because again, there's just no way for EDG then to kill you, even if you do play a little bit over-aggressive. And it's just so good for SKTelecom in this situation. They can already now basically start looking at what went so well in this game, because they're obviously going to face EDG one more time in this group, and they want to make sure they can 2-0 them now so they get that #1 seed. Because this performance here, it was a very, very smart pick and ban phase. And I think EDG made some clear mistakes. We've highlighted them a few times. We're showing picks early, and then this early dragon is just the wrong call. You can never do it.
Yeah, it's that dragon call that we just have to keep revisiting, because that was the breaking point there. They were a little lackadaisical getting down to the Dragon after killing Faker, and opening up the option there to keep the chain going. But that's, again, why we praise the good shot calling so often. It's because it's the ability to quickly assess the game state and make a choice based on the probability of success of the play, weighted by the net gain that you'll get from that play.
At Season 4 Worlds, Samsung White came in as a team that had, so many different things they put in. They tried to change the meta. It was for the better. They had so many smart calls. One of the things they did so well was value experience over buffs or gold or whatever in lane swaps in the early game. So by taking early Dragon, it might look fancy on paper. Hey, we got some more AD, some AP coming in. But when you're falling behind in experience, it just starts a small effect where suddenly you fall further and further behind. It becomes harder and harder for you to do anything. SKTelecom, of course, knowing that, just executed really, really well, and then use this Renekton to just constantly go aggressive.
Yeah, you always have to keep that opportunity cost in mind. That's why a lot of North American teams as well have been deprioritizing rushing for the early Dragons.
Oh, close one there. Amazing J nearly pulls in Bengi. He didn't have a lot of support near him. It would have been a bit of an effort, but here comes the push back in. Mako in the front lines will get pulled back, but now Pawn is alone in front of the enemy team. He's going to ult to run away. Marin still tanking up in the front line. Amazing J now the sole tank in this one, and it's a little bit of knockouts coming through. Faker now getting attacked. Big shields, but he's going to go down. Deft is still alive in the background, and Bengi's going to be next, but there's still damage coming through from Marin. Pawn will drop down, and it's a 2-for-1. The chase can continue. Marin's not far. He smells blood.
Yeah, he's got no flash, though, and chasing a Callista, very frustrating.
There's a
Doesn't
minion wave coming. EE into Q. Summoning he'll use for the movement speed. Def will get away, but it's a 3-1 fight again for SKT.
That looked so good in the start for EDG. Almost looked like the perfect fight to get back. We saw a massive Echo ult into the back line, into an Hourglass, a lot of damage coming down, and yet they simply cannot take down the remaining members. So 3 guys on it now. Faker has TP in 3 seconds. Bengi has his ulti as well.
Yeah, good call to just grab the vision from the Scuttle Crab there first, not take the risk. SKT are in the position where they continue stacking Dragons. This will be number 4. And it should be a fairly trivial task for them to complete it. No vision.
No recall for you, Dev.
EDG should not go face check it.
I'm just going to clear the way as Bengi feels safe while tunneling around the map. No one's touching his Rek'Sai, certainly, and all's going to be well as SKTelecom T1 makes their way down to the bottom side of the river, and there's a Dragon waiting.
Oh. Number 4. For SKTelecom, no threat and no real way for EDG to rush a Baron and maybe try and trade it. There's already wards on that side, and for them to move that far out is so risky. Let's see the fight again, though. So they're checking in because they want to see if Baron has been taken, and this fighting in a choke point at first. Look at the Echo going in as a stun first. I thought it was the ulti, but he actually jumps out with that. But he goes in with the stun and buys time for at least Def to deal some damage.
Yeah, but because Spawn didn't get any damage off with his ultimate, that's a huge chunk that they're missing here. Def was able to kite very effectively during that and get off a lot himself, but we're back into the action.
And it's already a knockup coming through. Wolf now retreating to keep himself alive, and a big knockup from Bengi means more is going to happen there. Marin absorbing in the front line. Mako's going to be the target there, quickly picked up. The dunk doesn't mean much here, and there we go. Amazing J just can't get enough damage. Faker survives. Pawn gets a single kill, but it's a 2-for-1 yet again. Pawn on the run, getting away from Bengi.
Even though Deft and Pawn survived, both of them extremely low, and they just have to go back.
Well, Pawn will get himself a shield. That'll block some more damage, but Baron Nashor has gone down. No smite needed. SKT with more global objectives, and vroom! Here comes Bengi.
That's your water ski noise?
He's still running.
Summoner TP will be enough. They won't see him in time. The Q doesn't root. Pawn's okay.
Yeah, his Q was going to hit, though.
It was.
2 points for accuracy.
It did miss. Does that really count as accuracy? Is it a dodge? I guess it's a dodge more than a miss.
Fair enough. I yield, freak. I have to say, though, this game has not been about Faker.
No. This entire, aside from the game against Bangkok Titans, which is a fun one, none of these games have been about Faker. They've been about Marin almost exclusively here. Game 1 is Fiora. Won them the game against H2K. Game 3 now is Renekton is honestly winning the game against Edward Gaming.
And team play, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's well executed lane swap from SKTelecom, and then the fact we are in a meta where top lane can get out of control so easily. Just a small advantage is enough to get him rolling. And when he has this pick with the Renekton who can always jump on a low mobility Darius, it's so easy for him to just push the advantage over and over. And Sivir buffing them up, they're going in.
And here they go. Dev's going to get cleansed, but it's not going to be nearly enough. Faker picks up the kill. Mako's next easily. And there's really not much that Amazing J's going to do on this one. Pawn Pop's yielding for a bit of damage. Zone used to buy some time. But who even cares anymore? SKTelecom T1 barely take any damage as they ace Edward Gaming. It's just a formality now for the Nexus. That's going to do it. 3-0 start to the World Championship. SKT undaunted take down Edward Gaming.
We had one big team fight where it looked like EDG maybe could come back. I even thought the Echo got into the backline with his ulti, but it was just him stunning him, so there was no damage, and that was really the story here for EDG. Once they fell behind, they never had enough damage to kill the front line of SKTelecom, and it bought so much time for Faker and Bang to just safely sit there, and even Marin, of course, with this Renekton being a monster and just taking out 2 or 3 guys every time.
EDG very clearly focusing heavily on the Dragon. As you mentioned, giving up a lot for it in the lane swap, and then after the kill on Faker, rushing over to it even though Faker had his teleport up and the death timer so short in that period of the game.
Yeah.
SKT were able to swing it back in that moment.
It was basically 2 Dragon Calls, level 1 or level 2 in the lane swap, and then the one you mentioned, but we saw both teams go for the western lane swap in the start with fast pushing the lanes, you know, divide the map, double jungle, then start fast pushing. But EDG just didn't send in the top laner to the lane. So they sacrificed their own top laner. SKT did not. They gave him everything. He got gold from the tower. He got the wave when he was sitting there getting experience advantage.
Helps to be the captain?
It helps being the captain, I guess. But that really is just a big difference in how such a massive advantage gets created, and then just slowly but surely just grows and grows and grows.
And a lot of credit, of course, to Marin for being able to, open that wound a bit more and kind of dig in there and start ripping out some organs like he's a Mortal Kombat character or something. Just got the lead and ripped the game apart. I mean, this is Renekton. Like, he's one of the most graphic champions of the game in the first place. But, I mean, really just impressive stuff. Built very offensively, which is not greedy, certainly, because it worked out, but a little bit risky. You're one of the pure tanks in your team, building offensive items, a 3,300 gold offensive item.
That's true. Rek'Sai and Braum as well.
You're right.
That's a scary
He gets to be more of an in-and-out fighter. Yeah, Renekton is interesting, but certainly, yeah.
Pick and ban-wise, I think we could see what EDG were trying to do. Again, a very strong 2v2 lane, see if they can keep Bang and Wolf together and maybe even have some kill pressure onto them. Allow Mako to start roaming with that guaranteed gank from the Jarvan. You talked about level 2 and just all through the early game. Klilov and, of course, Mako could set up plays. But again, once you start falling behind, they're just locked into defensive positions and then suddenly the value just drops down completely. Like a Jarvan who's behind is about as useful as you in the jungle, Kobe.
Fair enough. I mean, I'll give it to you because you gave me such high praise at the beginning.
We've gone up, we've gone down.
You just build me up only to break me down.
We even it out.
That's how you gotta, I mean, the bigger they are, the farther they fall. Just grow your ego so we can smush it down a little bit.
But really, that one catastrophic mistake against SKT, you can't make that. And they showed SKT very good execution after they were able to gain control of the game in that Dragon fight.
And what's funny too is Edward Gaming are not a team, obviously it's a very small sample size, but up until now, at no point had they ever been behind in gold at the World Championship. Okay, H2K and BKT. Not the strongest opponents, but even like SKT had fallen behind H2K and come back in. And much like this game, Edward Gaming had gotten ahead, and then SKT came right back in. They've done an amazing job of pulling their way back into this one.
Yeah.
You can see, based on the name of the jersey, Faker will be joining us for an interview in a little bit with Shox. That'll be great. But yeah, I mean, it's actually now 2 games. Like the only games that they've been tested, H2K was close for the first 15 to 20, and Edward Gaming was fairly close for the beginning as well. SKT have come back into it, and then once they got a lead at 20 minutes, they never, ever looked back.
Think Amazing J might be questioning his Darius from now on?
Especially early picking it, like he did.
Yeah, definitely got countered. So props to SKT for this one, but it's enough from us. But you've heard, you're now going to hear, what Shox and Fake are going to say about that match. Let's take it away.
Thank you very much, guys. Joined by Faker, who is smiling ear to ear. I even get a little nervous always conducting these specific interviews. First up, congratulations for that humongous win versus EDG. I don't want to remind you of it too much, but of course we remember that historic final where you got counter-picked by EDG at MSI. How did that influence the preparation for this game, and especially the picks and bans?
페이커 선수 우선 이런 대승리 거두신 것을 축하드립니다. 지난 이런 일 다시 꺼내서 죄송하지만 사실 SKT1 팀은 지난 MSI 때 EDG 팀의 카운터픽 전략으로 좀 패배를 당했었는데 그 패배 이후로 좀 이제 그걸 배움의 기회로 삼아서 혹시 이번 경기를 준비하셨는지 말씀 부탁드립니다.
지난번에 5경기를 할 때 제가 르블랑을 픽한 다음에 모르가나한테 카운터를 당했거든요. 그런데 이번에는 좀 메타도 많이 바뀌고 또 사용할 수 있는 미드 챔피언이 많다 보니까 저도 많이 미드 챔피언을 연구하면서 카운터픽을 좀 찾은 것 같아요. 그래서 나중에는 쓸 수 있을 기회가 있을 것 같다고 생각해요.
So at MSI, it's true that Pawn countered my LeBlanc pick with Morgana. So after our loss, I prepared a lot of mid champions. I practiced a lot, and I think I was able to find a lot of good counter pick champions for this tournament. And I plan to show more wide variety of champions in the future.
Well, we have seen the Olaf as well. To step away from this game, or actually more specifically to the outcome of it, you've talked a lot about revenge, about redemption versus EDG. But is this one group stage win satisfying enough for you in that regard?
이번 롤드컵 이전에 인터뷰에서 EDG 팀한테 복수하고 싶고 다시 한번 증명의 기회를 삼고 싶다고 얘기했었는데 이번 조별예선 1승으로 만족하시나요?
우선 EDG에게 이긴다는 것은 당연히 기쁘지만 근데 한 경기만으로 만족하기에는 이르고 또 한 경기만으로 선수들이나 팀을 평가하는 거는 좀 바보 같다는 생각을 하거든요. 그래서 이걸로는 만족하지 않고 그리고 게다가 조별 예선이었기 때문에 지난번에도 저희가 조별 예선은 이겼거든요. 그렇기 때문에 다음에 나중에 높은 곳에서 만나면 그때를 더 중요하게 생각해야겠죠.
Of course, we're glad that we beat EDG. They're a very strong team, but I don't want to get too excited. We beat them during group stage at MSI as well, but we lost in the finals, as you know. So, if we get a chance to play again in a much higher group stage, like finals, wherever they are, I want to win again at that point.
I hear you mentioning the finals. Do you think that EDG SKT has a high chance of being in the finals, or do you see another team being in there against you guys?
페이커 선수가 이제 더 높은 곳에서 EDG와 다시 한번 붙고 싶다고 말씀하셨는데 그럼 페이커 선수 생각하기에 EDG와 SKT가 다시 한번 결승전에서 붙을 수 있다 생각하시나요? 아니면 다른 팀이 SKT1 팀과 붙을 거라고 생각하십니까?
우선 앞일은 모르는 거기 때문에 감히 예상할 수 없을 것 같은데 그런데 지금은 좀 제가 이전에는 중국 팀들을 많이 고평가하고 그리고 EDG도 고평가했었는데 지금 여기서는 유럽 팀들도 쟁쟁하고 북미도 쟁쟁하고 다른 팀들도 다 좀 잘하기 때문에 결승전에서 EDG랑 만날 확률은 낮다고 생각합니다.
Before we came here, I really thought that the Chinese teams would be very strong, but looking at the past performance for the past few days, I think that European teams and other Asian teams are very strong as well. So I actually think that the chance to meet EDG at finals isn't that high.
Well, that praise for the European teams makes me smile, of course. Finally, as you say, this is only the group stage. The finals are a long way away. And Zion Spartan from CLG yesterday said this is totally different because there is no Samsung White this year. And you guys as SKT are also not seen as the absolute favorites over everyone else. How does that influence your mindset? Because that's a different thing for you guys this time around.
어제 인터뷰에서 CLG의 자이언 스파튼 선수가 이번 대회 때는 작년에 삼성 화이트처럼 절대 무적의 팀이 없다고 이제 언급을 했습니다. 그리고 실제로 SKT1 팀도 이제 2013년대 우승할 때처럼 그런 포스를 지금 풍기고 있지는 않은데요. 그러한 것에 대해서 어떻게 생각하시나요?
우선 자이온 스파르탄 선수의 말씀대로 지금 중국뿐만 아니라 다른 팀들이 모두 다 잘하기 때문에 작년 롤드컵처럼 일방적인 경기는 안 나올 것 같고 그렇기 때문에 더 재미있을 것 같고요. 그리고 네, 그럴 것 같아요.
Actually, as Zion Spartan mentioned during his interview yesterday, I don't think there's like the one strongest team in this World Championship, so it'll be much more interesting to watch and there'll be a lot more fun games to come.
Oh, we've seen a lot of fun games already. 감사합니다. Thank you so much for the interview. And now back over to our guys to break this win of SKT over EDG down more.
Thank you, Shaks. Definitely a game that SKT will be happy with taking the win for. Probably not fully satisfied until they take the finals, though, I have to bet. I want to talk about, though, what both of these teams were willing to show this game, starting with the champions that they brought out. We saw the Jarvan on one side, as well as the Renekton and the Ryze, and a Braum that Wolf hasn't had so much success on in the past.
No, he hasn't. He's actually 0-4 prior to this game. It's a champion that we really haven't seen Wolf play very much in the past, and he certainly hasn't had any success on it. I have been looking at solo queue for Marin for a long time. It's no secret. He's been spamming a lot of Renekton. It's his most played champion of all time, and I'm just happy. He's always been a great Renekton player. I love seeing him rock out with his croc out.
That top lane matchup was just so one-sided, and the thing about these juggernauts is that they're all melee, so things like Renekton that are normally kiteable against all this range is just going to see so much more prevalence, and that's why I really like the Ryze pickup. His Rune Prism is 600 range, outranges everything on the map this game. There's no Jinx, there's no Caitlyn to be able to chunk him out before he even gets into the fight. He's just able to wander up to people, CC them, and then put out so much damage.
Yeah, and the point-and-click Rune Prism is especially effective against Kalista and Echo, so we saw a lot of counterpicking here from SKT. They got to counterpick AD carry in lane if they wanted to. They didn't actually go for that, though, Sivir into Kalista, but they picked Ryze to deal with Kalista, and then they picked Renekton to deal with the top lane Darius. So they showed two things here that I thought was actually a little bit of a bait there from EDG, because they picked the Darius early, and they could have hit either their top or their mid lane, and they chose not to.
Yeah, is that bravado by them to have picked both their solo lanes?
I can't be in their head. It could be bravado. It could be them being like, this is a group stage match. We're probably going to 4-2 this group, maybe go 5-1 and then have a tiebreaker. But they might just be getting information out of SKT.
And I kind of agree with Zyrene here, because if we look at their bans in particular, Alistar, okay, we know Wolf plays that all the time. The Elise has been a heavy priority for SKTelecom. And the Azir, curiously, SKT not really likely to pick that Azir on red side, since they're going to be looking for a mid counter pick for Faker. So they really are just trying to test the water here against SKT. And if we look at MSI, they lost the group stage game very convincingly versus SKT. But when it came to that best of 5, EDG looked a little bit more adaptable, like they slowly got the information they needed out, and then they were able to open up this LeBlanc trap, right? So maybe they're doing the same thing again.
And that's the best thing about this matchup, is as much about what's happening behind the scene with Aaron and Coma as it is on Summoner's Rift. It's getting really exciting right now, because we have this rivalry of probably the two best coaches from different regions coming head-to-head and setting their teams up for what they see as success.
Now, I want to jump into the game with these given picks. We saw the lane swap initiated by SKT, and as a result, Amazing J on the other side of the map fell disastrously far behind against Marin.
Yeah, Marin got the turret experience, they got the wave appropriately, and then Amazing J was starved a bit, and then they put him in the long lane with no turret, no safety, so he had to go up against this Renekton, slight counterpick there, and had to be in a lane that he's always threatened by Bengi, so he got kind of shafted there.
Well, a quick way to lose against SKT is to allow them to counterpick both solo lanes. I don't think we're going to see that so much in the draft in the future from EDG or from other teams. But if you look at what EDG was trying to do, it did make sense, right? So they were going for the quick dragon. Okay, it sets Darius behind a little bit, but we're looking at champions such as Sivir, who started with that Avarice Blade, the Ryze, which needs a lot of time to scale. So the problem was when they ganked the mid lane and killed Faker, they blew 2 ults, Annie ult, Jarvan ult, to get him. And then when the ensuing team fight came, even though they needed scaling, they didn't have the cooldowns to do it. Now, I would have actually rather have seen EDG not try to kill Ryze right there, just go for the dragon, save those ultimates. I think they win that fight.
Well, so the dragon fight comes through, immediately following this. This was kind of that moment where the huge gold swing came through. As a result, gave SKT the advantages further throughout the game.
Yeah, and like Monty was saying, no Cataclysm, no Tibbers. Tibbers is actually still up during this fight, but of course no stun initially. Wolf does have a really good ultimate here, but they weren't respecting their lack of cooldowns on EDG's side, and they weren't also respecting the teleport. It is so early in the game that Faker just comes back to this fight, no problem. So it was a big oversight there by EDG, and both these teams, I understand the idea. They're not built for sieging, they're built for team fighting, they're built for going for objectives, but it just wasn't the right time relative to their cooldowns to actually go for it.
Yeah, that's why I say don't gank Faker with all those ultimates. Either try to get some damage on him, force him to recall, don't commit like that. Save the ults for the Dragon, because that's EDG's big hope. They already committed to this idea. They committed to losing the top lane in order to get 5 Dragon stacks.
Final thoughts?
And beyond that, just target prioritization. That team fight was so different between the two teams. One team, beautifully executed from SKT. EDG were just smacking a Braum for way too long.
It was so close of a fight, too. If they had those ultimates, could have been very different.
All right, well, some stuff has been shown, but I'm sure they still have a lot left in the tank between these two teams. Our coverage continues in just a few minutes with Europe's own H2K facing off against the Bangkok Titans. We'll be right back, so don't touch that browser.
It's going to be an amazing one. It's China's Edward gaming versus South Korea's SKTelecom T1. That's a trade kill back in Pond. Now stuck on top of the Dragon. Faker gets his first kill of the game and then still trades back and forth, but EDG are routed. Finds Clearlove at a ton of damage right away. They try to burst him back out, but Faker's totally safe. Clearlove running away as fast as he can. Faker not getting attacked. Big shields, but he's going to go down. Death is still alive in the background, and Bangy's going to be next. Faker picks up the kill. Mako's next easily, and there's really not much an amazing he's going to do on this one. Pond pops Yildi for a bit of damage. Zonya's to buy some time. SKT, undaunted, take down Edward Gaming.